When James Carter, a legendary chef, was fired by the new owner of the restaurant where he had worked for 20 years, it wasn't because of his skills. It was because of the color of his skin. Alongside him, all black employees were also dismissed, regardless of their contributions. But James didn't accept the injustice. He gathered a team and opened a new restaurant that became a symbol of the fight for dignity and equality. What happened next will astonish even those who've seen it all. But let's start from the beginning. Edward Stanley, the new owner of the restaurant, who had recently inherited it from his uncle Richard, entered the dining hall with an expression of confidence and determination. The employees, gathered at his request, exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to expect. It was clear that changes were coming, but no one realized just how serious they would be. Edward stepped to the center of the room, paused, and announced, "As of tomorrow, all black employees no longer work here." His words hit like a lightning strike. A heavy silence fell over the room. No one could believe what they had just heard. People who had worked here for years now found themselves facing an unexpected and blatantly unfair reality. The restaurant manager, David Henderson, trying to remain calm, took a step forward and quietly said, "But sir, James Carter, our chef, has worked here for more than 20 years. The restaurant's success is largely due to him." Edward, cutting David off before he could finish, snapped, "I don't care. I don't make decisions based on merit. In my restaurant, only people with white skin will work." His voice was cold and unyielding. Along with James, the other black employees were also fired. Each of them was a professional, dedicated to their craft, but they all lost their jobs solely because of the color of their skin. James Carter walked home slowly after his last day at work. He was still wearing his chef's uniform, which now felt unbearably heavy. Each step was difficult, as though he was leaving behind not just a restaurant, but 20 years of his life. James had been the head chef since the restaurant's inception. He remembered how, together with Richard Stanley, the previous owner, they had built the restaurant from the ground up, pouring their hearts into it. He wasn't just a chef. He was the heart of the restaurant. Every recipe, every detail on the menu was the result of his creativity and years of experience. But now, all of that seemed worthless, because the new owner didn't see the value in his talent due to the color of his skin. As he passed by a beautiful empty building on the corner of the street, James slowed down. The building was well maintained, with large windows and a spacious lobby inside. It attracted him with its appearance. It seemed to be inviting him. And then a thought flashed in his mind. What if he opened a new restaurant here? A place where he would be the owner, where he would be judged by his skills, not the color of his skin. At first, the idea seemed crazy, but it began to take on more and more real possibilities. Over the years, he had saved enough money to start his own venture. And most importantly, he had the experience and knowledge to make it successful. James felt a surge of energy. For the first time in hours, the bitterness and resentment began to fade. Instead, something new took root in him. A determination to start fresh and prove that his worth was not dependent on others' opinions. At that moment, he made a decision. This building would be his new home. The home of a restaurant that would reflect his vision and talent. The next day, James woke up with a clear plan in mind. His first thought was that he needed to gather his team. He knew he couldn't do it alone and immediately called his former colleagues, who had also lost their jobs due to their skin color. The first to answer was Marcus, his kitchen assistant. "Marcus, I want to open my own restaurant, and I want you with me," James began without wasting any time. Marcus was silent for a moment and then responded, "I'm with you. Let's do this." Next was Catherine, a waitress who had worked at the restaurant for many years and was always cheerful and great with customers. When James told her about his plan, she immediately agreed. "Of course, I'm with you, James. We deserve better." The last to join the team was Rebecca, the bartender, who had also been fired because of her skin color. She didn't hesitate. "I knew you wouldn't give up. Let's make it happen." With his team assembled, James didn't waste any time. They met at the very building that had caught his eye and discussed all the details. Marcus was ready to take charge of sourcing and coordinating the kitchen, while Catherine and Rebecca offered their skills in managing service and promoting the new restaurant. Catherine, who had always been interested in social media, suggested an important idea. We need to tell people our story. People need to know what happened to us and why we're opening this new restaurant. It's not just a business, it's a symbol of justice. James agreed, realizing that their story could attract attention and show that they were not just victims, but people fighting for their future. Work began in earnest. James focused on the kitchen, developing a new menu, while Marcus organized fresh product deliveries. Catherine started a blog, sharing their story and revealing the injustice of their firing. Rebecca came up with the idea of hosting an open evening to introduce people to their new project. Each person contributed, and the project began to take shape. Catherine quickly turned her blog into a powerful tool for spreading the word about the new restaurant and the team's story. She shared photos of James at work, his recipes, and stories of how they were fired because of their skin color. The posts quickly gained popularity. People commented with support, expressed outrage at the injustice, and some even promised to attend the restaurant's opening. The story spread so quickly that the local media became interested. Journalists began reaching out for interviews. Newspapers wrote articles with headlines like, "A new restaurant, a symbol of the fight for justice." Television reports told the story of James as a man who, after losing his job, decided to fight for his rights and create something better. This media attention only increased interest in their new establishment. But the most remarkable moment came when Richard Stanley, the former owner of the restaurant and Edward's uncle, publicly expressed his support. He made a statement. "I've always known that James is not just a chef, but a true master of his craft. I'm proud to have worked with him, and I fully support his new venture." This statement caused a sensation, especially since Richard, the former owner, had chosen James's side over that of his nephew, Edward. Such developments made James's new restaurant a symbol of the fight for justice. People came not only for his cuisine, but also to support those who had faced discrimination and refused to back down. Every new post by Catherine, every interview, and every report made them known far beyond the city. James, Catherine, Marcus, and Rebecca felt they were on the right track, and the restaurant's opening promised to be a significant event for the city. When the opening day of James' new restaurant finally arrived, the line of people waiting to visit the establishment stretched far beyond the building. Everyone wanted to support the team that not only endured injustice, but also turned it into something meaningful. James stood in the kitchen, preparing for the first order, feeling a mix of excitement and pride. He knew their journey hadn't been easy, but that only made the moment more meaningful. The first evening was a huge success. People were impressed by James's dishes, which always stood out for their exceptional flavor and quality. But this was more than just a restaurant opening. For many customers, it was an act of solidarity and support. Catherine and Rebecca were busy taking orders, while Marcus ensured flawless coordination in the kitchen. Everything ran smoothly. One of the most honored guests was Richard Stanley, the former owner of the restaurant. He didn't come just out of old ties. He came to support those who truly deserved it. Richard happily spent the evening at James' new restaurant, chatting with him and the team. He was genuinely proud to see how his former employees, who had made his restaurant successful, had now found success on their own. Richard even declared that he would prefer James' establishment over the one now run by his nephew. News of the new restaurant spread quickly throughout the city. People came not only for the exquisite dishes, but also to show their support for the fight for justice. James's and his team's story became a symbol of overcoming injustice and inspired many. In time, the restaurant became famous, not just in the city but beyond. James proved that his talent and dedication were stronger than any discrimination. His restaurant didn't just become successful, it became a place where people could feel the power of justice, community, and perseverance.